This is the Winebinder Podcast with Josh Weinberg and Josh Einbinder.
I want to ask you about your famous slogan where you have 2 minutes left in the half and you scream out, "Dos Minutos." How did you come up with that, and why did you come up with that?
All right, that's a very popular question, and in South Florida, that is a vocal icon right now. The Dos Minutos call. So the way that came to be is I was sitting in a game production meeting one day with all the folks that we work with in game production. And we also had our demographic group there as well. And somebody asked a question of our demographic group: what is the makeup of the Miami Heat season ticket holder? And their answer was, it's exactly the same as Dade County. And at the time, I think it was probably 50% Hispanic, 50% non-Hispanic. And so marketing said, well, you know, we embrace this culture, this Hispanic culture that we have here in South Florida. Is there any way we can incorporate Spanish into our game night presentation? And everybody in the meeting turns around and looks at me for the answer. And so I said, well, let's talk through this for a minute, because, you know, we've got half the group that is Hispanic. You've got half that's not. So I'm not sure you want me doing game reads or a lot of lengthy things in Spanish, because you'll alienate half the crowd that's in the building.
Yeah.
So we have to keep it simple, something that even if you don't speak Spanish, you obviously know. And so the thing that came to mind immediately was, whether you speak Spanish or you don't, everybody knows uno, dos, tres. Everybody knows that. Whether you speak Spanish or not, everybody knows uno, dos, tres.
It's true.
And so I tried to figure out, how can I incorporate those numbers into a call that would make sense? Well, you know, every basket is worth 1, 2, or 3 points. I'm not sure I wanted to scream tres puntos after every three-pointer that we scored. And then I got to thinking, you know, I am required by NBA rules to announce when we are inside of 2 minutes in each quarter. And the reason for that is the rules change. And so my job is to inform the referees and the teams, hey, we're inside of the last 2 minutes. We're now playing by the new set of rules. So that's really why I have to do that. So I started thinking about that and said, okay, well, I have to say 2 minutes. I'll say it in English, and then I'll repeat it in Spanish, because everybody knows dos, and I had just said 2 minutes. Minutos sounds a lot like minutes, so I think everybody would get it. A lot of head nods in the room. You know, a lot of people kind of saying they like that idea. And then my game night director said, I've got a better idea. Okay, what's your idea? He said, you're going to say 2 minutes, dos, and then I'm going to have the 20,000 fans at the American Airlines Arena scream back to you, minutos. I said, how are we going to ever do that? There's no way. He said, leave it to me. So he had these giant cards made that say minutos on them. And for an entire season, our hype squad, who we call the hoop troop, would take these cards and go into different sections every night, and they would prep the fans. They'd say, listen, they'd go there with like 4 minutes left, and they'd say, listen, Michael B's going to say dos, and I'm going to lift up the card, and you guys scream minutos. And we did that for an entire year, and we eventually trained our fans to, when they hear the trigger, dos, they scream back, minutos. And Josh, to further it a little more, it goes well beyond the American Airlines Arena. You can go almost anywhere in South Florida now, and somebody screams out, dos, somebody else is just going to scream back at you, minutos.
How many games did it take for this really to catch on?
Oh, probably the better part of the season. I mean, you had to, you know, work on the season ticket holders. They would get it, but you've got folks that are coming to maybe one game a year or a few games a year.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it took us the better part of that whole season to kind of get it ingrained in people.
Mhm.